Okay, let's talk about it. That little piece of plastic that most of us have in our wallets right now. You know the one. It promises us the world, right? Convenience, rewards, financial freedom. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain and take a hard look at the credit card industry.
So let's just ask a question, and it seems simple, but the answer? Well, it's way more complicated. And honestly, for a lot of people, a lot more expensive than you might think. Because the real price isn't just some annual fee, it's baked into a system with hidden costs that affect pretty much all of us.
I mean, look at the promise. It's all about cashback, free flights, paying for stuff without a second thought. But then there's the reality. And for millions of Americans, that reality is record-breaking debt, all these hidden fees, and get this, even higher prices for everybody. In this explainer, we're going to break down how we got here.
All right, so let's get into the first big trap here, and it's the most obvious one, the interest rate. This is how a small purchase can totally snowball into a mountain of debt before you even know what hit you. Just listen to Johnny Cash's story. She's an educator over in Philadelphia. And when she sat down and actually did the math, she had this jaw-dropping moment. She was paying almost $700 a month just in interest. That's nearly as much as her mortgage payment. It's just wild to think about. And look, Janie's story is not some rare exception. Right now, the average interest rate on credit cards has just exploded to almost 25%, 24.8%. To put that in perspective, Americans paid out $170 billion in credit card interest and fees last year. That's a staggering amount of money. So how did we get here? I mean, just a decade ago, that rate was around 13%. It's nearly doubled. So you ask the banks, and they'll tell you, oh, it's because lending is just riskier these days. But is that really true? Let's look at the numbers. And this is where things get really, really interesting. This chart basically tells the whole story. See that first bar? That's the actual risk the banks are taking, the so-called charge-off rate. It's pretty much flat. It hasn't really changed. But now look at the second bar. That's the bank's profit margin. It's shooting through the roof. The two lines just don't match up. The profits are soaring, but the risk, not so much. So what's going on? It all comes down to this thing called the credit card margin. Think of it as the bank's pure profit layer that they slap on top of the base interest rate. And get this, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they looked into it and found that about half of all the rate hikes in the last decade came from one thing: banks just making that profit margin bigger and bigger. It's almost like a giant experiment on all of us. There's this story from a former Capital One employee who said the company started testing this. They'd nudge the rates up from 24.9% to 26.9% and even higher. And you know what they found? People didn't leave. We're also distracted by the rewards or just kind of locked into our cards. We don't switch. So they figured out they could charge more simply because they could get away with it. Okay, so that's the story for people carrying a balance. But what about you? Maybe you're one of those people who pays it off every single month. You're just in it for the points, for the rewards. Well, sorry to say, there's a hidden cost for you too. Yeah. Have you ever really stopped to think about it? When you get that free flight or that free frying pan or whatever, who's actually paying for it? Because let's be real, nothing in life is truly free, right? Okay, so here's the magic trick. It's a 4-step process. Step 1, you swipe your card at, say, the grocery store. Step 2, the store has to pay a swipe fee to your bank. It's usually between 1.5% and 3.5%. Step 3, your bank takes a chunk of that fee and uses it to pay for your points and rewards. And here's the kicker, step 4, to make up for all those fees they're paying, the store has to raise its prices on everything for everyone. So what does that actually mean? It means we've created this really unfair system. Think about it. People paying with cash or debit or who just can't qualify for those fancy rewards cards, they're all paying slightly higher prices on milk and bread just to help pay for the first-class tickets and hotel stays for the wealthiest customers. And I'm not just making this up. The numbers are absolutely jaw-dropping. One study found that the top 27% of earners rake in an insane 94% of all credit card rewards. This whole thing isn't some accident. It's a feature, not a bug. The system is working exactly as it was designed. Okay, so we've got these insane interest rates on one side and this really unfair rewards system on the other. So the big question is, why doesn't the free market just fix this? Shouldn't another company just come in with a better deal? Well, the short answer is, this isn't really a competitive market. It just isn't. At its heart, it's basically a duopoly. Think of it like this. You've got the two giants at the top,
Visa and MasterCard. They control more than 80% of the entire market. Then you've got the big banks, the ones actually issuing the cards and raking in the fees and interest. And here's the thing, they all grew up together. They protect each other. It's this unspoken harmony where they all make sure nobody rocks the boat and the profits keep flowing.
So, if the system is this big and this entrenched, can it even be fixed? Is there any hope? Well, you might be surprised by the answer.
You know, it wasn't always like this. For a long time, states actually had laws that put a cap on interest rates. But then, in 1978, a huge Supreme Court decision changed everything. It basically allowed banks to set up shop in states with no caps, think Delaware or South Dakota, and then export those super high rates to the rest of the country. And just like that, all those state-level caps became totally useless.
So fast forward to today, there are really two big ideas floating around for how to reform things. The first one is simple. Let's bring back those rate caps, but this time make them national. The second idea is to go after those swipe fees, force some real competition into that market to bring down costs for stores, and in the end, for all of us.
And this is where the politics gets super weird and interesting. On the issue of rate caps, you've got this totally unlikely alliance. On one side, you have progressives like Bernie Sanders and AOC pushing for a 15% cap. And on the other side, you have populist conservatives like Josh Hawley, even Donald Trump has talked about it, proposing very similar caps. It's pretty wild to see.
Now, of course, the big banks say, oh, if you cap our rates, we'll have to stop lending to people with lower credit scores. But consumer advocates like Adam Rust here, they just push back on that. They say, look, plenty of smaller banks and credit unions are already offering cards with lower rates, and they're doing just fine. The proof is out there. It's not a question of can it be done, it's a question of how much profit is enough.
And that really brings us right back to that piece of plastic in your wallet. So you have to ask yourself, is it just a tool for convenience, a helpful friend, or is it part of a much bigger trap, a system designed from the ground up to profit from debt and make inequality even worse? That's really the question to think about the next time you hear that little beep at the checkout.